I have major updates on the Olympic ice dance scoring controversy that's led to outrage over the USA being robbed of a gold medal. New reports show the French judge accused of favoritism has a history of questionable scoring, and it does not look good.
Two-time Olympic champions Madison Chock and Evan Bates are stepping away from competitive skating, and they're doing it entirely on their own terms. Following one of the most celebrated careers in American figure skating history, the ice dance pair has chosen to skip the World Championships and pull back from the sport that shaped them for over a decade. No fourth back-to-back world title, no farewell tour, just a quiet, graceful departure, after delivering what they described as their finest performances on the grandest stage in the world. And honestly, it's tough to argue with that. The announcement arrived on Monday, when Chock and Bates officially withdrew from the World Championships, joining their teammate Alyssa Liu, who had already pulled out days prior. The championships are scheduled to kick off March 24th at the O2 Arena in Prague, Czech Republic. The U.S. squad heading there is going to look very different from what fans had anticipated just a few weeks ago. Now, pulling out of Worlds after an Olympic year isn't uncommon. In fact, it happens in nearly every cycle. Skaters pour absolutely everything, physically, mentally, emotionally, into the Olympics, and by the time the games conclude, there's often nothing left in the tank. The season feels finished. The mission feels accomplished. And for a pair like Chock and Bates, who have been at the pinnacle of their discipline for years, the notion of gearing back up for another major international event just weeks after the Olympics is frankly a great deal to ask. But what makes their withdrawal feel distinct, what gives it that sense of finality, is the context surrounding it. This wasn't just another competition they were sitting out. This was potentially the final chapter of a remarkable story, and both of them appear to recognize that. Chock and Bates had been dropping hints for the better part of 4 years that Milan Cortina would be their last Olympics, their ultimate competitive era. They never stated it outright. Athletes rarely do. Because the future is unpredictable and the competitive drive doesn't always fade on schedule, but the signals were there for anyone paying close attention. And now, with the games behind them and Worlds on the horizon, they've made the decision that their season is over. Evan Bates put it plainly and beautifully. He said they left everything on the ice in Milan, and that their season felt complete with those 4 performances where they gave their very best. And when you look at what they actually accomplished in Italy, it's hard to dispute that assessment. Chock and Bates were a cornerstone of the United States figure skating squad that defended its Olympic team gold medal in February. Consider what that means for a moment. Defending an Olympic team gold is not something that occurs very often, and the Americans pulled it off with a group of skaters who brought their absolute best when it mattered most. Chock and Bates were central to that effort, delivering the kind of performances that remind you why they've been at the summit of the sport for so long. But then came the individual competition, and that's where things grew complicated. They finished second silver. On paper, that sounds like a tremendous result, and in many respects it is. An Olympic silver medal is something most athletes can only fantasize about. But the circumstances surrounding that silver medal made it bittersweet in a way that's difficult to overlook. The French duo of Laurence Fournier-Baudry and Nicolas Sorensen claimed gold, and the gap between the two teams became a flashpoint for controversy almost instantly. The issue was the scoring, specifically the marks submitted by French judge Jezabel Dioise, which were drastically out of line with what the other judges were awarding. The margins she assigned were so extreme, so far outside the range of her fellow judges, that the outcome drew intense scrutiny from skating fans, analysts, and insiders across the sport. It raised uncomfortable questions about judging integrity, about whether the result truly reflected the performances on the ice, and about what Chock and Bates may have genuinely been denied. The ISU has its procedures for examining these matters, and the full scope of any inquiry or review that may follow is still developing. But what is undeniable is that Chock and Bates skated beautifully, gave everything they had, and walked away with silver in a result that many people felt didn't capture the full picture. And yet, and this is what makes them so admirable, they didn't make excuses. They didn't launch a public campaign demanding a different outcome. They acknowledged what happened, addressed it thoughtfully, and chose to let their body of work speak for itself. Because that body of work is genuinely extraordinary. 7 national titles, 7 a record in U.S. ice dance history. 3 gold medals at the Grand Prix final. Victories at numerous Grand Prix events throughout their careers. And then there's their run at the World Championships, which has been nothing short of dominant. They've been on the podium at the last 4 World Championships. They've captured 3 straight world titles, 3 in a row, back to back to back. In a discipline as competitive and politically complex as ice dance, sustaining that level of excellence over multiple years is something only a handful of teams in history have ever managed. Bates acknowledged the weight of that legacy when he spoke about the decision to skip Worlds. He noted that while they had decided not to compete at the World Championships, they hold dear the incredible memories from winning the past 3 years, saying those achievements have meant the world to them and that they couldn't be more grateful for all the love and support. There's a grace in those words that feels entirely consistent with how they've conducted themselves throughout their careers. So, who steps in to fill the massive void they're leaving on the U.S. Worlds team? Caroline Green and Michael Parsons get the call, sliding into the ice dance roster in Prague. They'll compete alongside 2 other American ice dance teams, Olympic teammates Christina Carrera and Anthony Ponomarenko, and the duo of Emilia Zingis and Vadim Kolesnik. It's a younger group, one still establishing its international reputation, and the stage in Prague will be a significant proving ground for all of them. On the women's side, the U.S. picture is somewhat more stable, but still navigating its own reshuffling. Alyssa Liu's withdrawal last week was a considerable blow. Liu became the first American woman since Sarah Hughes in 2002 to claim Olympic gold, completing one of the most remarkable comeback stories the sport has witnessed in years. She was just 20 years old, competing at her debut Olympics, and she stood atop the podium. The fact that she's sitting out Worlds isn't shocking given everything she's been through, but it does mean American fans won't see her compete again until next season at the earliest. Sarah Everhart steps in to replace Liu, joining Amber Glenn and Isabeau Levito, who are both still in the field and expected to be contenders. The American women's presence at Worlds remains formidable even without Liu, and there will be plenty of attention on how Glenn and Levito perform on the world stage. And then there's Ilya Malinin. His situation warrants its own discussion entirely. Malinin is still in the world's field. He didn't withdraw, but his Olympics were such a dramatic, emotionally complex experience that the question of how he rebounds from it is one of the most compelling storylines heading into Prague. He arrived in Milan as the 2-time defending world champion, the clear frontrunner for individual gold, the skater who had been rewriting the record books with his technical difficulty and precision. Everything pointed to him standing on the highest step of the Olympic podium. And then it all unraveled. He struggled throughout his time in Milan. The pressure, by his own admission, got to him in ways he hadn't fully anticipated. In the free skate, he fell multiple times. Not the kind of minor stumbles that can be shaken off, but the kind of falls that transform the entire narrative of a performance. He entered the free skate in first place after a strong short program, and by the time the scores were totaled, he had dropped all the way to 8th. 8th place for the overwhelming gold medal favorite. Mikhail Shadurov of Kazakhstan stepped into the opening Malinin left and claimed gold in what was genuinely one of the most surprising individual results of the Winter Games. It was a stunning turn of events, the kind of Olympic moment that gets replayed and dissected for years. For Shadurov, it was the fulfillment of years of dedication paying off at the perfect moment. For Malinin, it was a gut punch he'll carry with him for a long time. But Malinin is young. He's exceptionally gifted. And the World Championships represent an opportunity not to erase what happened in Milan, because that's not how sport operates, but to remind the world and himself exactly what he's capable of when the pressure isn't overwhelming him. Whether he can do that in Prague is the question everyone in skating wants answered. The withdrawals don't stop with the Americans. Several other major names have also chosen to conclude their seasons rather than press on to Worlds. Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara, the Olympic pairs champions from Japan, are stepping away. Sarah Conti and Niccolò Macchi, who helped Italy earn team bronze on home ice, a moment that was genuinely electric given the host nation setting, are also sitting out. And Loena Hendricks of Belgium, one of the most dynamic and expressive skaters in the women's field, has withdrawn as well. These are significant names. Their absence will shape the competitive landscape in Prague in ways that are difficult to fully predict right now. Worlds without the Olympic champions across multiple disciplines is going to have a different atmosphere, a different energy. There's both an opportunity and a burden for the skaters who do show up. They're competing without some of the biggest presences casting a shadow over them. But they're also competing without some of the biggest attractions that make these events feel truly definitive. What Prague will offer us, though, is a preview of the next chapter. Chock and Bates are almost certainly gone. Lou is taking time away. The Olympic cycle is over, and the field is reshuffling. New stories will be written in Prague. New names will announce themselves on the world stage. And the sport will begin the long process of figuring out who the next dominant forces will be. That's always been the beauty of figure skating. The generations shift, the legends step back, and someone new steps into the spotlight and makes you feel something you didn't expect to feel. Chock and Bates gave the sport everything they had. 7 national titles, 3 world championships, 2 Olympic cycles, a career defined by artistry, consistency, and a level of partnership you only witness once in a generation. Whatever comes next for them, whether it's shows, coaching, commentary, or simply living their lives away from the competitive grind they've earned, every bit of it. And somewhere in Prague at the end of March, the next chapter of the sport begins.